Welcome to today's C.R.E lesson. Now we are in chapter 3, still in Form 1 work, that is faith and God's promises. And we are starting with Abraham. So we are going to look at the background to the call of Abraham. So in the examination, you are basically told, describe the background to the call of Abraham. So this is what you're going to say. Number 1, Abraham lived with his father Terah at a place called C.R.E. Terah, who had 3 sons, that is Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Haran died before his father Terah in the land of the Chaldeans. Then Abraham and Nahor took wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and Nahor's wife was called Milcah. Remember that Sarah, or rather Sarai, was barren. That is, she had no child. Now, let us look at the call of Abraham. So in the examination, you will find that you will be asked to describe the call of Abraham. So number 1, Abraham was 75 years old when God called him. Number 2, Abraham was told by God to leave his country, that is his father's home in Haran, and his relatives, and go to the land which God was going to show him. During his call, God promised him many descendants, blessings, and fame. You have to know that Abraham obeyed God's call, and he took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his possessions, and left for unknown land. God appeared to Abraham in Shechem and reassured him that he would give him the land of Canaan. Here he was just emphasizing that he was going to give Abraham land. So Abraham built an altar for the Lord at this place. This means that Abraham built an altar in Shechem. Remember that altars are places of sacrifice, and they are regarded as holy, and they are usually manifestations of God's presence. Later, Abraham built another altar in Bethel and worshipped the Lord. After a while, Abraham left for Egypt because there was a famine. In Egypt, Abraham was treated kindly by the king, and he was given flocks of sheep, goats, cattle, donkeys, and slaves, making him very rich. So it came a time that he was supposed to leave Egypt, and he left there with everything that he owned. Reasons for the call of Abraham. So, why was Abraham called by God? Number 1, God wanted to start the process of salvation which had been lost by human beings. That is, in order to continue with God's plan of salvation to humankind, he had to call Abraham. Number 2, God wanted to teach people the meaning of faith. And here is by Abraham agreeing to move from his native land and going to unknown land, and also wanting to sacrifice his only son Isaac. So yeah, it was a good way of teaching people the meaning of faith. Number 3, God wanted to make an everlasting covenant with Abraham and his descendants. God also wanted to use Abraham as a source of blessings to the Israelites. Another reason why he called Abraham is because he wanted to separate Abraham from idol worship. Remember that he was polytheistic, that is, he worshipped many gods. One of them was his father was also a moon worshipper. Number 6, through Abraham, God wanted to make some of Abraham's descendants kings. So now he had to call Abraham. And also, he called Abraham to give him a son, that is Isaac. Another reason was to give Abraham land to dwell in. That is, here we're talking about the land of Canaan. And lastly, God wanted Abraham to be the founder of God's great nation. He wanted him to be the basis, the start of his great nation. Now, let us look at the challenges that Abraham faced after his call. Now he has been called by God and obeyed it. So, what are the problems or the difficulties that he underwent after his call? Number 1, he was circumcised at an old age. Remember, during his call, he was 75 years old. So he was circumcised after that. And in most cases, boys are circumcised when they're young. And if it's older, at least by the time they are 14 years. Another challenge is that he had to get a son at an old age. He had to get a son, and remember that old age, when he was a little bit, we believe that old people are a little bit weak. So this is the time that he had a child to play with, or rather to teach aspect of God. So that was a problem. Number three, he had to change from polytheism to monotheism. That is, he had to change from worshipping many gods to worshipping only Yahweh. Another challenge was that he was childless. Remember, before they were given by God a child, that is Isaac, they were childless. That before was a what? Challenge. Remember, they got the child after they obeyed God, and they had already started worshipping Yahweh. So before that, they were childless. So that was a problem. Moving to unknown destination. Remember, in his call, we talked about that he was told by God that he's going to be given land, but he was not told the name of the land. He was just told to do what? To leave his land, to leave his native home, the home of his father, and start the journey. So that was a challenge. Also, parting with his nephew Lot. Later, after his call, that was a challenge. He also had to change from nomadic way of life. That is, he had to change his normal way of life that was about moving aimlessly and frequently. Now he had to live in one place after God had told him where to dwell in. And also another challenge was when God tested him to sacrifice his own son. That was the only son that he was given. And lastly, there was insecurity, or rather hostility of the desert. Even the weather itself and the people who are living in the desert, they were hostile. Hostility of the desert was our last challenge. Thanks a lot for subscribing and listening